on WEFM 99.9.
And it's now 25 minutes on to the hour of 11 a.m. You're locked on to the Clean First Song with WEFM 99.9. Good morning to you. Today's Shakeup scripture reading will be taken from Psalm 6, verses 1 to 3. Lord, do not rebuke me in your anger, or discipline me in your wrath. Have mercy upon me, Lord, for I am faint. Heal me, Lord, for my bones are in agony. My soul is in deep anguish. Lord, how long? How long? That was a scripture reading taken from Psalm 6, verses 1 to 3. You're locked on to the Clean First Song with WEFM 99.9. Remember, Shakeup's the interactive program, so the numbers to call 457-9997. The numbers to call again 457-9997. Also to be interactive on WhatsApp, you can call or text 457-9997. Today's Shakeup host will be hosted by no other than Mr. Augustine Ferdinand.
Thank you very much, Richie. Good morning to you and morning to the listeners of WEFM. Good morning also to those of you listening via Star and Garfuna Radio this morning. Pleasant greetings to our many listeners in the diaspora in the US of A, Canada and the United Kingdom and across the continent of Europe. Also to our many students who are at this time sitting their exams. All the best to you. Those of you joining us via the internet. Those of you looking on and listening via social media, and those of you, of course, in the comfort of your homes this morning, or simply driving to and from a destination, or on the farm, on the job. Pleasant morning to you. As usual, it's an interactive program, and the number to call and interact with us is 457-9997. That's 457-9997. That's the number that you can call to get interactive with us, whether through landline or WhatsApp this morning. Now, I know persons in Toronto, given the tour being done by Invest SVG, that you were or are anticipating the Minister of Finance, but unfortunately, given the scheduling, you will be visited and given an address by the Minister of Housing and Informal Settlement, Youth and Sports, Dr. Randall Brewster. So that will happen in Toronto this Saturday, I think, Saturday the 10th, at the Dr. Scarborough Community Service Center. Also this morning, I know and this is through the Taiwan Embassy, that there's a session, I think it's at Beachcombers, this morning as we speak. I think they started around 9 o'clock, focusing on artificial intelligence. I mean, we live in a time now where AI is more or less becoming a very quite normal part of our life. And therefore, at Beachcombers, the topic is development in digital cities and challenges in cybersecurity in the Caribbean region. And given how advanced we are becoming in the 21st century, and where we do a lot of things online, including banking or transactions, and you also have various government platforms online. I know here in St. Vincent and Grenadines, we have experienced our fair share. I'm talking about government website where they were hacked. And again, artificial intelligence and cybersecurity issues. So that's the topic this morning, of course, you can have where your country is influenced by external entities, again, through, social media and all of that propaganda and these things. So it's a lot. I can imagine that is being discussed there today. And I think it goes up to 4 o'clock this evening. Also, for persons listening in particular on the Leeward side of the island, not Leeward in particular, there's going to be a community consultation and farmers meeting in Rose Hall this evening, and you'll hear from the area rep and also the Minister of Agriculture, and I know that you'll have 1 or 2 contractors there because they're going to discuss the Copeland and Palmyra Road, and these are areas where you have farms, and there's a lot of farms in Palmyra. So that will happen this evening. I also know that at the Methodist Church this morning, and I actually received a lot of inquiries about it, the Farmer Support Company is holding a today training workshop for 2 days on the topic of farming as a business. And that's taking place at the Methodist Church Hall today and tomorrow from 9 o'clock to 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And some of the areas they'll be focusing on, again, this is through the Farmer Support Company, is bookkeeping, record keeping, business plans, and the loan application process from financial institutions for the benefit of farmers. So registration and inquiries about Farmers ID will be done at the Methodist Church Hall during this training workshop. Again, it's today and tomorrow. So those of you who are curious or may want to find out information pertaining to Farmers ID or how do the requirements for registration for Farmers ID, you can go there and they will guide you. But again, the focus for this from the Farmer Support Company is letting farmers know and country on a whole that farming is a business, and it is not something that I know persons in the past would attach a particular stigma to it, deeming farming as for persons who are either uneducated or never went to advanced tertiary institution, educational institution. But farming is a business and it can be quite profitable. Yes, there are some upside, there are some risk involved, especially given our topography and our climate, from diseases to climate-related events. But once you are able to more or less plan for these sort of things, it can be a quite profitable venture. And the Minister of Agriculture last night on ELP Speaks program made mention of the homegrown campaign, and where the idea is to continue to ramp up production here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Of course, the focus is to increase our food security and to reduce imports on produce from a competitive advantage or comparative advantage can be grown and sold here locally for local demand. And that is why you see a lot of distribution of seedlings, and you see distribution of layers and broilers, for example, because those are areas where comparatively we can increase our supply to satisfy local demand. So again, at Methodist Church Hall this morning, the farmer support company is having their today workshop today and tomorrow, focusing on farming as a business. And anyone who are interested or would like to inquire about farmers ID registration or the requirements or status, you can check there and they will indeed guide you. Now, yesterday we focused on citizenship by investment. And we'll continue that discussion today. But off the bat this morning, and I didn't touch on it yesterday, the World Bank has projected that our economy for the year 2025 will grow by 4.9%. And that is significant news. And it shows that with the Unity Labour Party having been re-elected in 2020, despite the pandemic and eruptions of laissez-faire and climatic events or weather systems, Beryl and Elsa, that the government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines has been able to manage the fiscal affairs of St. Vincent and Grenadines well, and the economic management of the various sectors of our economy. Because just for a refresh now, in 2020, despite our economic contraction by single digit, 5%, we were still the best performing economy. And our many neighboring brothers and sisters saw double-digit contraction of their economy. In 2021, even during the eruptions of laissez-faire, where many anticipated a significant contraction of our economy, given that the northern belt of St. Vincent and Grenadines, which is also primarily focused on agriculture and even fisheries, were evacuated. And therefore, that meant reduced economic activity. But lo and behold, we, at the end of the day, were able to record a 1% growth despite that. And then you have in 2022, 2023, 2024, growth beyond 4+% in St. Vincent and Grenadines. And now in 2025, growth is expected at 4.9%. Again, these numbers, they're not made up by the Prime Minister or the Minister of Finance or any other members of Cabinet. These numbers are done in collaboration between the various technical persons in the World Bank and their own assessment of what is taking place in our economy. I just want to say this, though, because again, sometimes you hear from the opposition that there's no growth in our economy or that our economy is going backwards, or that nothing is happening in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. But wherever you have not just growth, but strong, robust growth, it suggests significant uptick in economic activity, whether it may be in construction, whether it may be in tourism, whether it may be in even agriculture. It means that there's a significant uptick in various economic activities. One of the things I remember, though, is that in 2022, where the IMF, in their own release, And this point is very important. 2022 IMF article. And it shows you again the response of the government at that time was the right response, and that the government of St. Vincent and Grenadines continue to manage the economy exceptionally well. The IMF article 2022 from the Executive Board Assessment. This is the IMF International Monetary Fund. It says here, executive directors agreed with the thrust of staff appraisal, meaning that the staff of the IMF, they already do their assessment. They commended the authorities' proactive responses to the pandemic and volcanic eruptions that reduced economic scarring and contributed to small positive growth in 2021. Remember, I said that given the impact of the eruptions of La Soufrière in that year, plus still dealing with the pandemic, that many persons expected a contraction of our economy. Because, I mean, like I said, you had to evacuate the whole northern part of the island. It therefore meant that persons couldn't go on any farms. It therefore meant that persons in Norway and Chateaubelair, for example, and even parts of Barley, not only can go on the farm, but fishing as well. And it also meant that the transportation economy up there would cease. So there was no commercial activity. And therefore, because of that, you would anticipate an economic contraction. But despite all of that, plus still dealing with the pandemic, we had economic growth, though marginal. And the government of St. Vincent and Grenadines must be commended. And this is why the executive board of the IMF, they too, I believe, was very surprised. Even I was surprised. And I think the Minister of Finance himself might have been surprised to an extent. They commended the authorities' proactive responses to the pandemic and the volcanic eruptions that reduced, hear this, economic scarring. That is the assessment of the IMF, that the interventions of the government of St. Vincent and Grenadines reduced economic scarring and contributed to small positive growth in 2021. It goes on to say, they noted, this is the staff appraisal of the IMF, they noted that while outlook is favorable and supported by large-scale investment projects and the continued recovery of agriculture and tourism, it is subjected to significant downside risk and the economy remains vulnerable to shocks. When they talk about the economy remains vulnerable to shocks, things like, for example, tariffs, Donald Trump, and the impact that can have on the cost of goods imported in the country. Or let's say you have, I mean, the Ukraine war is still going on, Ukraine-Russia war, if that is escalated, that can cause a shock to our economy. These sort of things, you know, that's what they meant. So I wanted to mention that again while we're looking at the World Bank projection of 4.9% growth for this year. Again, this was 2022 executive report. Now, there's another one I wanted to look at, which was last year's report. And this is what last year's report said, IMF. It says the economy rebounded strongly in 2022 to 2023, from the pandemic and 2021 eruptions, returning to pre-pandemic output levels, meaning that the amount of economic activity in dollars and cents after the pandemic returned to normal numbers as before the pandemic. Growth reached 3.1% in 2022 and estimated to have accelerated to 5.8% in 2023. Well, actually, that went above the projected. It went up to 6%. This was supported by large public and private sector investment and a robust recovery of tourism. Yeah. Formal employment surpassed pre-pandemic levels, meaning that formal employment in the economy, there was an increase in employment in the economy, and it surpassed, this is very important to know, it didn't say that pre-employment, that it didn't say that formal employment in 2024 return to the levels it was pre-pandemic, It said, and I'll read it again, IMF report 2024, that formal employment surpassed pre-pandemic levels in 2022 and is estimated to have continued to grow in 2023. So, based on the IMF report, formal employment surpassed the levels it was pre-pandemic and even in 2022, which means that not only the employment levels recovered, but there continues to be an expansion in employment in the country, or an increase in employment in the country as a result, again, of the expansion of private and public sector. Very important, and investments in the country. Growth is projected 4.9% in 2024 and supported by continued growth in tourism and strong investment on infrastructure, particularly the port project. It goes on to say inflation projected to ease to 2.5% by the end of 2024. Now, one of the things you often hear as well, and again, the executive board assessment is that St. Vincent and the Grenadines has achieved a robust recovery from the recent compounded shocks. What do you mean about recent compounded shocks? I usually mention them. Pandemic, droughts, the increased inflation as a result of not just the Ukraine-Russia war, but even things like oil prices and the pandemic itself. You have Hurricane Elsa, Hurricane Beryl, the eruptions of last February. All those are shocks. Compounded shocks, one after the other. The authorities' decisive, this is important, the authorities' decisive policy responses, larger scale investment projects, and robust growth in tourism have contributed to the recovery. So sometimes when you hear the NDP go about some of these meetings and they say, the government ain't doing nothing, the government is mismanaging the economy. Well, I see one that really and truly blow things like way out of proportion, saying that there's no young people left in the country. Lord have mercy. And that was spoken by the president of the Young Dems. They really gone from bad to us. And they go on to say that our productive sectors have failed. All these things you hear from the NDP. But when you read the data, when you read what independent institutions are saying, the very same IMF and the World Bank that the NDP likes to talk about from time to time, they're saying that the authorities' decisive policy responses last year, large-scale investment projects, and robust growth in tourism have contributed to recovery. Employment has returned to pre-pandemic level and even surpassed those levels. That is what the IMF have said. But let me take this call. Good morning, call. Welcome to Shakeup.
Good morning, young man. I didn't know you were in the ranks of the elderly. No more young people remaining in the country.
That was said by the president of the New Democratic Party youth in West St. George gone.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I was just seeking clarification from you.
Yeah.
Mr. Ferdinand, a meeting took place recently and the NDP has been blowing many horns about it. That where the CWI president, Dr. Kishore Shalom, met with prime ministers of a number of Eastern Caribbean nations that have CBI programs. And follow up to this meeting, Dr. Shalom went on touting how good those programs are. I wonder if he's doing research. Because one, St. Kitts and Nevis, where Dr. Terence Drew had to revoke a number of citizenships and blacklisted some CBI agents.
Correct.
Not too long ago, there was this gentleman who was arrested in Dubai with connections to CBI programs in the Caribbean because of complaints filed by applicants. And those complaints had to do with a number of discrepancies. In Dominica, you have a number of agents such as RIFT Trust and others that have been blacklisted elsewhere but continue to operate in Dominica. In St. Lucia, and that one is becoming very interesting, where the government revoked contracts with Galaxy, Caribbean, and BMAX. And if you recall, Galaxy Caribbean sold many passports, Kititian passports, because they had a contract to build a brand new prison, a project that
Correct.
never got off the ground.
Yes.
In St. Lucia, they were handed 6,000 files by the current government, which makes up anywhere between 24 to 36,000 passports, depending on the size of the family, to build a hotel. To date, this hotel has barely gotten off the ground. Another company, BMAX, was supposed to start a housing scheme at a place called Rock Hall overlooking the city of Castries. Nothing done. While, yes, CBI programs, and Mr. Shalom could be correct there, can bring in money. The dangers he is yet to speak of is that persons who are on watch lists around the world, persons with questionable backgrounds or connections, are the ones who tend to apply for those passports, giving them literally free access into many countries. And that is the big problem. I know today, tomorrow, a number of Eastern Caribbean countries will be meeting with Secretary of State Rubio in Washington.
Yes, and that delegation is led by Prime Minister Philip Pierre.
Yes. And I know this will come up, the CBI program. And I cannot, from what my sources tell me, the Americans are not backing down, nor are the Europeans backing down from the position they have taken regarding CBI.
Well, there are two things the Americans not backing down from. One is that CBI, and the other is America's growing concern of Chinese influence in the Americas?
Correct.
That I don't know. The Jamaicans actually have a lot of conversation about it since Secretary of State Marco Rubio visited Jamaica, where that concern was raised. And I think part of the reason is that Jamaica has a very strong Chinese influence, and that is seeping into Antigua and St. Kitts and Dominica.
In Grenada also.
And they're seeping in Grenada, and the NDP, if intentions make some mistake or be responsible in their behavior, that's the trajectory that the NDP would want us to go down.
Let me remind Vincentians, with your permission. The stadium constructed in St. Lucia, the free trade zone, those contracts were signed before the 1997 elections. But when those projects were started, lo and behold, it was Chinese nationals occupying the labor force. And St. Lucians just could not get that changed. There were very few St. Lucians working there on those projects. The Chinese constructed their own accommodation. They were living on the projects. They were sleeping there. And it was like 90% Chinese nationals occupying the labor force. Yep. It is not like the Taiwanese.
Correct.
Where the Taiwanese would bring in technical experts to guide and assist the labor force, which would be mainly local.
Yes.
The Chinese bring in the labor force.
And not only the Chinese don't only bring, this is one of the strange things I find. And anyone, again, I often say this, you can research it, and you can use Jamaica, for instance. In Jamaica, the toll road, for example, and it's quite a funny thing. The toll road, the government of Jamaica borrowed the money from China, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But during the construction phase of the road, the main contractor was Chinese. A lot of the workers were Chinese. The trucks used, most of them were operated by the contractual company. And the funny and strange part about it is that after the road is completed, the toll collected from the road went back to China. I'm like,
China.
Again, if anyone don't believe me, just you can research Jamaica toll road highway.
It's
a hell of a thing.
And if people want to go further, look at what's happening in Pakistan and a number of other countries where they have taken over ports built on loans from Chinese banks.
Correct. And there's even a port in Trinidad and Tobago. And there's also in Jamaica, as a matter of fact, there's quite a few in Jamaica also operated by Chinese company. And that is why I said what I said. When I heard the vice president of the NDP say, well, we need to privatize not just the port, but healthcare facilities, in my mind, putting two and two together, you're like, maybe already lined up to have the management of the port by a Chinese company. Maybe, just maybe that may well be the case.
No, but look at the situation in St. Lucia with GPH.
Yes.
Where St. Lucia now is earning what? $1 or $2 off the head tax, and GPH is earning $10.
Yes.
Because they decided to privatize the ports. A mistake that have people on both sides of the political divide in St. Lucia scratching their heads. You do not privatize your ports.
That's the entry and exit.
GPH did it in Antigua and a few other countries, and they are literally being kicked out.
Yeah.
So when the NDP and the people speak about privatization, they need to be very careful when you speak of what you're going to privatize. Are we looking at a rerun of the economic situation in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and you can correct me, prior to 2001, where a number of industries were shut down? Are you telling me that is the aim? Are you saying that if the NDP get into office in a bid to have a quote-unquote surplus budget at the expense of the well-being of your people? I'm challenging them.
Yeah.
Come out and clear the air on that. Are you saying that if another natural disaster hits St. Vincent and the Grenadines under an NDP government, that people will be left to fend for themselves like Americans after Katrina? Are you telling me that with looking at the exports being made by Vincentian farmers to Trinidad and Tobago and elsewhere, that they may very well be left, despite all the talk, out in the wind? And to make matters worse, and who will hold what ministry? This is scary, you know. Do you think the current leader has what it takes to say, no, you will be given this ministry because this is more in keeping with your skill sets?
Well, I think what the opposition has that may give an indication. Usually call them shadow ministers. So I know, for example, Sinclair Leacock is shadow minister of national security, private sector, labor, and is a long portfolio. Yeah, his portfolio is actually longer than the leader of the opposition. The leader of the opposition shadow ministry is finance, legal affairs, Grenadines affairs, and tourism. Yeah, I think that is it.
Yeah, but even that, I mean, the leader of the opposition has finance. But I'm going to, and people may say I'm practically beating a dead horse. But he's yet to report, one, on the training he attended in Trinidad over a year ago, paid for by the taxpayers. And two, he's yet to even attempt, despite numerous calls by his own people, to convene a meeting of the Public Accounts Committee. So when it's not having a portfolio, but it's how you manage the portfolio. I mean, while people are saying, oh, they begin to repeat the phrase from Trinidad, yellow is the code. They need to understand there is a vast difference. And let me say this. There is a vast difference between the UNC in opposition and in Trinidad and Tobago and the NDP in opposition in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. There's a vast difference between the UWP in opposition in St. Lucia and the NDP in opposition in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. It is chalk to cheese across the board. And I challenge any of them to prove me wrong. It is not saying, oh, we in opposition. We know. What do you do? And they can research it. Alan Chasney every week calls a press conference. Alan Chasney every week has a meeting somewhere, a town hall meeting somewhere. You may not like his style, but his job is holding the government's feet to the fire. He's calling them out on many issues. He's filing judicial action. What is the opposition doing here? A whole set of talk, a whole set of comments. You cannot win elections. You cannot run a country based on commerce. You say there are no young people left in this country? Are you telling me that the censuses carried out by various agencies are wrong? Well, if there are no more young people in this country, why do they have a young Democrat arm of the party? I rest my case.
All right, man.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
President.
Thank you for your contribution. Yes, that is Robertson Henry. It's now 14 minutes. Yes, 14 minutes past the hour of 11 o'clock. So we'll take a short commercial break and then resume with the program.
WEFM
99.9. The flavor nice, it's locally made. Affordable price, Lord, up to $3 retail. When you see we line with the red and white case, show me what you like. It's cigarette from Empire. Holdings Limited, it's cigarette from Empire. Holdings Limited. Limited, with over 60 years experience. Oh, the best tobacco, best ingredients. Yeah. This is your boy Luther say, support local, buy your cigarettes from Empire Holdings Limited. 10 cigarettes in a pack for up to $3 retail. Remember, smoking is not for minors.
Yes, sir.
Our industry relies on all of us to play our part. We take pride in showcasing our beautiful island, our craft, our cuisine, and our warm Vincentian hospitality.
Each of us play a crucial role in showcasing our vibrant tourism industry.
We can create spaces where visitors can unwind, connect with nature, and embrace tranquility of our beautiful surroundings.
We need everyone on board to help us create an exceptional experience for our guests.
Join us at our National Tourism Community Consultations as we shape the future of tourism in St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
It's everyone's business, yeah. Love it, embrace it.
That could have been you. An accident that could have been avoided because your tires had almost no grip on the road. Safety is a factor that should never be overlooked when it comes to your car or whatever you drive. SVG Tire Sales and Services in Falls Avenue and in Arnisvale carries a wide selection of quality new tires to fit any car, truck, minibus, or SUV, so you can experience a comfortable and safe commute every time. We are agents for the world's most reliable brands on and off the road, including Kenda Tires, the king of the mountain, Cooper Tires, king of the road and track, Ostone, the king of the outback, and High Fly, the king of the Asian highway. We also carry new tires for light or heavy-duty trucks from MRF, High Fly, and Linglong. A reliable set of new tires keep you, your passengers, and your payload always in the safe lane. So when you need quality tires with reliability at 100%, choose SVG Tire Sales and Services in Kingstown, 457-1467, or in Arnisvale, 456-6444. SVG Tire Sales and Services. Performance and reliability proven when the rubber meets the road.
Are you tired of being tired? Fighting the battle of the bulge? Take a breath of fresh air and embrace a new lease on life. Oxygen Fitness Center is here, located in the Camden Park Industrial Estate in the Green Building, next door to the government printery. Our range of fitness equipment and programs were carefully selected to meet your needs. Take a leap of faith today. Oxygen Fitness Center has the answers to your fitness needs. Check us out on Facebook and Instagram or call us at 457-8333.
Too often, customers are counted but not valued, like mere numbers, statistics, transactions. But at Flow, we're prioritizing you, our valued customers who have been with us through every milestone, every moment. That's why we're putting our money where your loyalty is. Flow customers claim up to $400 in rewards for smartphones, groceries, and more when you add mobile to your current internet plan. Because loyalty isn't a one-way street. At Flow, loyalty flows both ways.
99.9, the heart and soul of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. WEFM is SVG.
So yes, we are back in studio of WEFM. I am your host, Augustine Ferdinand. Remember the number to call, 457-9997. That's 457-9997. That's the number that you can call via landline or WhatsApp to get interactive with us on the program. So I'm looking at the IMF reports. 2022, you have 2023, you have 2024. And the World Bank's projection that our economy will continue to grow, and not just low growth or modest, but robust growth, 4.9%. So the executive board of the IMF last year says the authority's decisive policy responses, large-scale investment projects, and robust growth in tourism have contributed to recovery. So basically, all the things you hear about NDP saying that the government is managing the economy well, no jobs being created in the economy, there's no opportunities for growth and all these things is rubbish, hogwash. That is what the IMF report is saying. All that you hear from the NDP is be hogwash. Again, employment returned to pre-pandemic levels, and the outlook is favorable, supported by continued recovery in tourism and strong investment in infrastructure. That's the IMF assessment of the government's management of the economy of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. PM Gonzalez can't tell them how to write the report. The Minister of Finance can't tell them how to write the report. I continue. This is the report from last year now. The NDP won't like the idea or the fact that I'm reading this, because it shows that the government is managing the economy well and the government is on the right track. Hear this part. The ongoing investments, again, I'm reading from IMF report 2024. The ongoing investments in key infrastructure, such as ports, roads, airports, water supply, along with efforts with digitization and improving investment climate, are crucial for alleviating supply side bottlenecks and enhancing competitiveness. The NDP telling you we don't need this modern port there. But the IMF is saying, again, hogwash, because that is crucial for improving competitiveness of our economy. The Agile International Airport, which the NDP said we didn't need, the IMF report would say that it's hogwash because it's necessary for improving competitiveness. And as we have more flights, more jobs created, more opportunities in the economy of St. Vincent and Grenadines, including roads, the water supply, the digital transformation project, which is ongoing now. And persons now, public sector workers can tell you that you can now file your taxes online, and companies, they can do that as well. You can use your card at various government services, including the port now, to pay for services, and that program continues to roll out here in St. Vincent and Grenadines. And the IMF is saying all this is necessary to improve competitiveness. The work that the Invest SVG is doing, the campaign reaching out in the diaspora and assisting investors, both local and foreign, necessary for improving competitiveness. That's what the IMF is saying. Again, Prime Minister Gonzalez can't tell the IMF what to write. The Minister of Finance can't tell them what to write. No cabinet member, no, not even the technical people in the Ministry of Finance or Economic Planning can tell them what to write. The IMF team, they look at the data, the information, and they make their assessment. And based on what they see, based on what they saw last year, again, going back to the initial point that they made, they said St. Vincent and the Grenadines has achieved robust recovery from recent compounded shocks. And they went on to say the authorities, meaning the government, decisive. You hear that? Decisive. Not laid back like our Fridays. Who can't make up your mind? We're telling you don't really have much energy in the morning. Decisive policy actions of the government and responses and large-scale investment projects and robust growth in tourism have contributed to our recovery. So 4.9% last year, 5%, and World Bank is projecting another robust growth 4.9% this year. That doesn't happen by magic. After all the compounded shocks, pandemic, look at it this way. Since you re-elected the Unity Labour Party into government, November 2020, we've had shocks after shocks after shocks. The pandemic, the eruptions of La Soufrière, severe droughts, Hurricane Elsa, Hurricane Beryl, shocks after shock after shock, and still have to deal with the impact from Ukraine-Russia war and other shocks, including now we have to deal with effects of tariffs. Shocks after shocks after shocks. And while dealing with each of them decisively, responding swiftly to them, we achieve growth, we achieve record employment figures, and we continue to deliver despite these shocks. You're talking about over $1 billion because, for example, if Hurricane Beryl alone costs you over $800 million in loss and damage, obviously to recover you need more than that. Not so? It's just like your house. If your entire house is destroyed and the value of the loss and damage is $200,000, no doubt you'll need more than that to rebuild and furnish on a whole. You'll need more than that. So you need more than $800 million to fully recover. And that is just Beryl alone. Imagine when they calculate loss and damage from Elsa. When they calculate loss and damage from the eruptions of La Soufrière. Loss and damage, even drought. When you calculate all that economically, it's over $1 billion+. But somehow the NDP will try to have you into scaremonger, have you scared, and enter into scaremongering tactics because our debt increased over the past few years. Because we have to respond. And you know, the funny thing is, even within the NDP itself, through Fitz-Bramble, acknowledge that. And that is why I mentioned that before the pandemic, St. Vincent and Grenadines' debt to GDP was in the early 70s. And we were on the path of taking a very short time to meet the ECCB target of 60%. But after all these compounded shocks, drought, Elsa, Beryl, Soufrière, you have to respond swiftly. There are persons who lost homes. Obviously, they want a caring government to rebuild homes for them. The money don't fall out the sky. You want homes repaired, the money don't fall out the sky. You don't find some sort of hidden chest with money somewhere. It has to come from somewhere. You have to find the money. Many persons across the country in different areas want their road repaired. The $22 million collected from license and all these things, that can't pay for the amount of miles of roads that we need repaired and reconstructed in the country. You have to find the rest somewhere. And while you're dealing with that, building homes, repairing homes, building roads, repairing roads, and building bridges, you still have to pay public servants at the end of the month and find $30-something million to do that. It don't fall out the sky. It doesn't. It has to come from somewhere. Somebody has to go and look for it. And when the Prime Minister travels, it's a problem. He ain't traveling on a joyride. He ain't say, well, let me go pack my bag and go on a 2 weeks relaxation. As the opposition did it not too long after Beryl, go Canada, spend how long he wants. Not a joyride. Prime Minister went to Romania, he bring back scholarship now. All now people could apply for scholarship to go to Romania. You go to Romania and cock up your foot and relax? No. He went to make sure, bring back things that will benefit the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, not for himself. And like I said, Brambley even explained it, why our debt to GDP had to increase. And the thing is, ladies and gentlemen, even from the IMF, and anyone who reads the IMF report will tell you that the IMF itself said our debt to GDP will reach its peak in 2026 and then decline after that. Because obviously, with all this growth taking place, as the economy grows, and once you don't borrow as before, your debt to GDP will decline. And because of the government's debt, the state's debt portfolio, where a lot of the debt is very low interest rate, and I'm talking about 1% and 2%. So it gives a lot of breathing room. Imagine if you as a citizen go to the bank or to credit union and get a loan for 1% and 2% interest. Man, you smile. That is what the government does to make sure that there's breathing room fiscally. But the NDP won't explain that to you. All they'll tell you, oh, look, the debt is over $1 billion extra. It is $3 billion and watch. But why the IMF not alarmed like how the NDP is trying to have you scared? Because of sound fiscal management by the government. The government knows what it's doing. And based on all reports, we are on the right track. And Bramble himself explained why our debt had to increase immensely. Because of the disasters, the compounded shocks. Yes, sir.
Was the debt to GDP ratio around 70% at the end of 2019 as one?
That is correct.
What has then changed between 2020 and 2024 to have caused the debt to be elevated to 92%? As two, and are there any factors which would have created any challenges for this spike in the past 5 years?
Well, I'm quite sure that person who asked the questions, they know the answer. Obviously, the disasters that we encountered, COVID, burial, and the volcano had contributed to the debt to GDP increasing.
Yeah. You hear it? COVID, volcano, burial, he missed out Elsa. The Ministry of Agriculture had to respond to droughts and make sure carry water for farmers and the like. All those cost money. You have to rebuild homes, repair homes. All those cost money. You first have to do cleanup exercise. You have to feed and shelter people. All that costs money. But they won't tell you that in the meetings, though. They'll say, oh, Lord have mercy. The government borrowing left, right, and center. We're done with. They won't tell you that the money borrowed went back to benefit you, the people. Those of you who are receiving the $1,800 for income support. Those of you whose homes were repaired by contractors, so the government have to pay. And whose homes are being rebuilt totally from scratch. They didn't tell you that. No. Because it will look like, well, the money was, the money is well spent. It's not that the government borrowing and doing foolishness with it. Is to benefit you, the people of this country. They won't tell you that. They'll just want you to think that the government is mismanaging the economy and doesn't know what it's doing. But from all indications and all reports, the government knows what it's doing, managing the economy well, and that we are indeed on the right track and labor is working. That's what it shows. And while labor is working, ladies and gentlemen, what the NDP is doing? What are they doing? up and down the country still telling you about CBI. That's what they're doing now. Telling you about CBI. A policy or a program or a scheme that is more or less at its end. That is what is happening. And again, you know, I have to smile because let's see, we have a call coming in. Let's take the call. Greetings, caller. Welcome to Shakeup.
Let me just say on the phone. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, Mr. Ferdinand.
Morning. Sir. Morning.
Yes, let me say morning to my representative Kissel and hoping that she'll be in next MP for our constituency. Just like South Beaver and Marvin, because we know some of them people coming home for show. And we thank God that if Prime Minister, he could give up so much a good candidate, peaceful people, and well-grounded. But you know, what you were saying, like Bramble, like Mr. Bramble, mouth slip, man. Me Bramble, I'm so sensible.
I would tell you more or less, Razor, you were listening to that particular program. He was right here with Kingsley. It was a night program where he mentioned that.
Yes, I know that. I know that. Well, that's like when the cock say he put in America, and was he's a party man and all kind of thing with the Constitution and everything. But you know, and also that they have you know, they don't make mistake and pay neighbor string some of them for nice way, you know. And when they realize that they neighbor string some of them pay that they always talk like in the Bible they tell you this man went to curse the Israelite and he donkey anyway and all kind of thing and donkey asked him some kind of thing like they question back on them and all them kind of thing. So instead of they cost the praise in the government. So you know is America happening in Sylvan so. But I want to know Japan GDP and America GDP and China and all these places GDP is out of comparison. Is out of the way. Because when you really check it out, if you had to check GDP, in these big countries and things, and even like Grenada and them kind of places, so it has no space, so not all. So GDP is a number, but at the same time, once the economy going and everything like that, after a time you could get that down. So when I hear they talk about economy. Now this economy look airport make so much of profit. Then I go tell people that all this kind of thing they never tell people, and they never tell people we end up saying with growth and all them kind of things. So they never tell people them kind of thing. Imagine that you walking, you buying car, you own a good house, and them is telling you that nothing happening in Sylvan so. Man, I telling you, man, these people and them really. But I don't have no to say, but all I know
all right,
that
man.
NDP, they getting vote because a tradition, and that ain't supposed to happen. They're getting vote because people turning a blind eye to progress. Imagine that you never get progress in your life yet. Any activity at all, whether boat ride, whether somebody having a session, it plays full out. It's selling out. It's cricket and all them kind of things. That when the economy is doing good. That when the country doing good. People Chevron John up in Sunday, we believe she happens because when she have a little thing, people going to the ice backs and people going to the lime and all kind of thing, and she believes that she's so heavy and all them kind of things. So because economy in the country doing well, everybody living happy and everything like that. So therefore, you're not seeing no property like when we can them talking about.
But you go here, the boss and back, go and say how much people this and how much people come to this, how much people go to that. Because you're gonna be doing well, Chevron and Liquor can them. And there is any little thing people come out to enjoy themselves. Cast back up from country to tongue.
All right.
Okay, man.
Thank you, man. Thank you. You know, Teresa said something there. You have a lot of boat rides and they always rampart. The funny thing about that, you know, is that the NDP since last year had a lot of boat rides, even recently too. And I will tell you this is not to say they ain't free, because the NDP they ain't foot in the bill for none of them. They ain't free. But with all these boat rides, the children still are waiting the $100,000 in groceries. The people who they claim to and pledge to help with material assistance is still waiting to see if it'll happen, despite all the income and revenue generated from all these boat rides. And I will tell you this, you won't find in this country a boat ride cheaper than $50. I'm telling you now. You won't find that. It's $50 up. You won't find it less. I'm telling you. But it's now 20 minutes to the hour of 12 o'clock here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. We'll take a short commercial break and then resume with the program.
WEFM 99.9.
The flavor nice, it's locally made. Affordable price, Lord, up to $3 retail. When you see we line with the red and white case, show me what you like. It's cigarette from Empire, Holdings Limited. It's cigarette from Empire, Holdings Limited. With over 60 years experience. Hold the best tobacco, best ingredients. Yeah. This is your boy Lou to say, support local, buy your cigarettes from Empire Holdings Limited. 10 cigarettes in a pack for up to $3 retail. Remember, smoking is not for minors.
Whether you're ripping it up on the highway or taking a casual Sunday drive, OT Tire Limited is second to none when delivering excellence at reasonable prices. We offer new and used tires, tire repair and installation. We are the only place that offers nitrogen, which helps with gas consumption and ride comfort. Supplying you with brand name tires like Maxxis, Kumo, Good Ride, Westlake, and Triangle.
Boom! Enjoy the VIP style customer waiting lounge with refreshments and free Wi-Fi. You know what I'm saying, yo? This is Skinny Fabulous, and when it comes to tires, nobody makes it easier than OT. Got me run the road. When me OT car tire.
Follow OT Tire on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter today.
Hey, boom, run the road with OT tires.
At Lynch Caribbean, yes, we offer comprehensive insurance solutions and broking. But we are more than an insurance broker. We drill down to your core business strategy. We keep a pulse on risk to keep your operations healthy.
On your mark, get set.
Along the way, helping you to drive competitive advantages. At Lynch Caribbean, we have your back. Contact us today for insurance solutions, strategic risk advisory, and more. Call 453-3300. Email info@lynchcaribbean.com or visit our office in Beachmount, Kingstown. Follow Lynch Caribbean SVG on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, or visit www.lynchcaribbean.com.
WEFM 99.9, home of quality programming. A source of reliable news and information. Home of legendary voices and music. WEFM 99.9, the clean fresh sound. Visit us online at www.999wefm.com or call 457-9994. WEFM 99.9, the clean fresh sound.
99.9, the heart and soul of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. WEFM is SVG.
So yes, we are back in studio of WEFM. I am your host, Augustine Ferdinand. Remember the number to call, 457-999-94. 9997. That's 457-9997. So we're discussing IMF report, St. Vincent and Grenadines between 2020 to now. Also the World Bank projection that St. Vincent and the Grenadines economy is projected to grow 4.9%. What does that mean? It means, therefore, that there's uptick in economic activity, there's increase in jobs and opportunities. It means that the government is making the right interventions in our economy, and therefore the different sectors, tourism, construction, agriculture, and the like, they're receiving growth. It also means that labor is working. It means that St. Vincent and Grenadines is on the right track. Now, I have a recording here, and it raises a lot of questions. Now, this is based off the AM Mayhem morning program on 97, where they were reading from a news article in My Witness News, based on a statement made by Kishore Shallow. And I want you to listen to this. I want you to listen to it very carefully. Listen to this.
Kishore was proposing some new
Kishore,
policies.
like he's setting NDP policy. So one of the things he had said, he says, we are going to reduce taxes on income. And I go in as far as saying, Dr. Friday, you ain't telling me this. We ain't sit down and talk about this properly, but with the money that I projected by the system he's talking about, CBI, within the first term, I would not be surprised if we were able to take off taxes totally from all income.
You know, let me play it again. Let me play it again so that you could dissect it, consume it, and then we'll discuss.
Kishore was proposing some new
Kishore,
policies.
like he's setting NDP policy. So one of the things he had said, he says, we are going to reduce taxes on income. And I go in as far as saying, Dr. Friday, you ain't telling me this. We ain't sit down and talk about this properly, but with the money that I projected based on my understanding or my appreciation for the system he's talking about, CBI, within the first term, I would not be surprised if we were able to take off taxes totally from all income.
Well. You know, there's always a saying about too many cooks in one kitchen. So there you have a newcomer to politics. Basically, telling the leader of the opposition, hey, we ain't talk about this, by just letting you know what is our position. The Lord of mercy. You can imagine that? It is when you come out to politics. Kishore Shallow. Never held a position in parliament before. Never ran as a candidate before. Never actually engaged in active politics, whether as a political activist or the like before. Nothing. Total newcomer. It's telling the leader of the opposition, who has been a member of parliament since 2001, who has been vice president of the NDP for many years up to 2016, and who became president in August 2016, who is the leader of the opposition. This newcomer is telling the president of his party, who is also the opposition leader, that, hey now, don't we ain't talk. I telling you, what is our policy? What the jail is this? Lord have mercy. What a time. You know what people say, what a mix up? Yeah. This is the NDP. You know, it reminds me when Leacock on radio, and Friday was in Mount Pleasant, and Friday had to listen to Leacock saying that, hey now, if NDP to win tomorrow, or whenever election call, he must be the deputy prime minister. No, if but now maybe. Even though, again, that ain't his calling, but he just letting Friday and others know that. And here you have a newcomer, again, to politics. Telling Friday, open in public, by the way. Tahena. This is the policy I set it up. Have y'all really listened to this thing? Let me play it.
Kishore was proposing some new
Kishore,
policies.
like he's setting NDP policy. So one of the things he had said, he says, we are going to reduce taxes on income. And I go in as far as saying, Dr. Friday, you ain't telling me this. We ain't sit down and talk about this properly, but with the money that I projected based on my understanding or my appreciation for the system he's talking about, CBI, within the first term, I would not be surprised if we were able to take off taxes totally from all income.
Well done. Bravo. Bravo, Shallow. I mean, by all means, if the man laid back and, whatever you feel like, talk to him however you feel like. Yeah. I mean, that is how it is in the NDP. You could imagine that. And you know what even make it worse? Let me tell you what even makes it worse. As a matter of fact, the very same Shallow recently in a social media post posted a photo of himself, the Prime Minister of St. Lucia, Philip Japere, Prime Minister of Dominica, Roosevelt Skerritt, Prime Minister of Antigua, Gaston Brown, posted a photo of them. And in that post, he said that they were discussing, CBI. Now, when you look at the photo with all of them sitting around the table, and of course the Prime Minister of Grenada, Dickon Mitchell, it clearly sent some messages there. And the one I got from it, again, everything is open to interpretation. But to have Shallow, who said that a few days ago he had the honor of sitting down with some of our outstanding prime ministers for a powerful lunchtime discussion. And we had a fruitful discussion, including CBI. He said he thanked the group of prime ministers for their continued leadership and support. You know what the photo and the post said to me? Is that, look, I could sit down here with the prime ministers of this region. Friday ain't even come close to that. That's my interpretation. That's my interpretation. The closest Friday got to that is sitting and talking to Prime Minister Andrew Holness. But here you have Shallow around a table with prime ministers. I'm the top boss. Yeah, that's what it says to me. I can have discussions with prime ministers. You can have a discussion on accounts committee. That's what it says to me. That's my interpretation. But as you have, okay, you can call back. That's my interpretation. Because if he can talk to Friday in that way openly by saying, we ain't talking about this thing by setting the policy. I telling you the policy. Clearly, they have no respect for the man. And if, again, I say to the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, if they within the NDP do not respect Godwin Friday, why on earth, in some part of your brain, those of you who think of it, would contemplate to even make him prime minister? Let me take this call. Greetings, caller. Welcome to Shakeup.
Good morning, Mr. Ferdinand.
Yes, greetings.
I'd like to say something. What's going on, right? By planning. I asked my representative for something, right? He gave me a paper to carry by the PS. I didn't have to carry by the PS. First, I carried out Amisvale by the Public Works. So the lady tell me I had to carry by the PS.
It may be best to have, because of the nature of this, which I think is going on, it's best to call me after 497-3413. Or I'll give you a call. I have the number here. Given the nature of what I think this is about. So that was shallow whole thing in my interpretation. And as someone highlighted here, all these prime ministers have excellent relationship with PM Gonzalez. And it is true that, in fact, their parties are sister parties of the ULP. That is true. And Prime Minister Skerritt and Philip Jip here and others, they respect PM Gonzalez highly. As a matter of fact, Prime Minister Skerritt said it openly that they always look to the leadership of PM Gonzalez. But again, from the post, I see it as sending a hidden message to not just the leader of the opposition, but also the other colleagues in the NDP. That, hey, here I am, sitting with prime ministers, having a discussion. You can ever come close to that. You can ever convene a public accounts committee meeting. That is my interpretation from it. The other thing here, the comment says it is deceitful to sit with PMs under the guise of representing Cricket West Indies and then report that they had a meeting to discuss CBI. Well, that's a whole nother issue. I don't know whether they actually had the discussion on that or not. But again, this, I believe, comes into the realm of conflict of interests, because as far as I'm concerned, I don't know why the president of Cricket West Indies would be discussing citizenship by investment, because as far as I know, Cricket West Indies is not involved in selling passports, but that is something that the people also will have to think about. It's amazing. But again, going back to the point, if they in the NDP don't respect Godwin Friday, they don't see him as any type of leader, they don't even want him, much less to be the leader of the party. Then if they don't want him to be leader of a political party, why should you even contemplate and see him as a leader of a country? You catch my drift? Yeah? Why? Why? But again, it raises a serious question here as posed by the person here. Because Shallow said that he, of course, there talking to these leaders, these prime ministers, and having a fruitful discussion and where they talk about citizenship by investment. But he's the president of Cricket West Indies. And I don't know since when Cricket West Indies is any business of selling passport. I don't know that they're in such a business. But I have the president of Cricket West Indies say he did talking to Prime Minister about CBI. But like I said, the message it said to myself and others and how I interpreted it is that I, Shallow, could be here talking to prime ministers, but you can't. Let me take this call. Greetings, call. Welcome to Shakeup.
Good morning, Fordy.
Yes, good morning.
You see the reason why the opposition leader cannot deliver the $100,000 to the young people
that he promised when he came back from Canada. Now they are conforming that by saying there are no young people in the country. And the second thing, I listened to the news and I heard Mr. Shallow making a statement that our Honorable Prime Minister is a clown. But if he looked into a mirror, he would see who is Moses. Okay.
All right, man. Thank you. But I see some comments here under the live, and I look at it before we'll leave. It says the things NDP say our plans can never stand up to scrutiny. The first and basic question, how are you going to pay for that? Well, the last I remember in an NDP article in August 2022, the 12th of August, and they don't talk about it. It says here under NDP view that we have also indicated that we will ease the tax burden on Vincentians by broadening the tax base of this country. NDP don't talk about that, you know. And as far as I understand, broadening the tax base means the introduction of new taxes. But they ain't gonna talk about that. Again, when you're desperate and you want to win by whatever means, you make all kind of promises. The rate the NDP going now, the next thing they might say is that they're going to give basic income to every citizen. Because they're desperate. So right now, anything goes. But we're at the end of the program. Yes, we're at the end. With sanctions, there's a lot at stake. And we can't take what we have for granted. We can't take what we have for granted. Because the rate the NDP going, selling passport, which is again a dying program, wanting to privatize assets. I mean, if you're telling me that you're going to make millions of dollars from passport, then why are you telling me we need to privatize assets to make a profit and cut cost? Something does not up there. And then if you're telling me that we need to cut cost through privatization and make profit, then how come you're now telling me that they're going to do away with income tax on income and all of these things? So again, it does not up. But that's the NDP for you. That's the NDP for you, ladies and gentlemen. Again, they'll say anything just for a vote. But as we know, just as the $100,000 they promise, they don't keep their promises. So don't even believe what they say. If they can ever promise that, trust me, don't believe what they say. With that, I want to thank those of you who call in and interact with me on the program. Remember, later on, 6 o'clock, there's going to be a meeting in Rose Hall with farmers. The area rep and the Minister of Agriculture will be there, and they're going to have contractors who will discuss Palmyra and Copeland Road. We have at the Methodist Church Hall, the Farmer Support Company with their Farming is a Business training workshop that will continue tomorrow as well, starting 9 o'clock. Also, those of you who have queries putting into Farmers ID and want to know the requirements as well, you can visit the Methodist Church Hall and they will guide you accordingly. So with that, take care.